And welcome back to another podcast with Mr. Hagan. On this podcast, we're going to continue to talk about the supply and demand for factors of production. Another way of saying that is the supply and demand for inputs, the supply and demand for resources. That all means the same thing. And when we say resources, we mean land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurial skills. And on this video, we're going to be focusing on labor. Okay, we're going to be focusing on the supply and demand for labor. So we have a demand curve for labor that is downward sloping. We have a supply curve for labor that is upward sloping, and we want to kind of break this down and look at each of these curves separately. So let's start by looking at the demand curve. So the demand curve for labor. Let's get ourselves let's get everything labeled here. So this would be on the horizontal axis is going to be the quantity of labor. That's going to be the quantity of labor, and then up here on the vertical axis is going to be the price of labor. And when we say price of labor, another way to say that is the price of labor is the wage. Okay, it's called the wage. And so I don't know where the wage comes from, but we do. We'll see where it comes from later. We don't know where it comes from yet. So let's just kind of pick a wage, and let's just say the wage, the prevailing wage is right here at W1, whatever that number might be, $500 a week or something like that. And so what you would do is you would take that wage and you come across over to the demand curve for labor, and you come down, and that will tell you the quantity of labor that the company wants to hire at that wage. But let's talk about why that's why they want. This is how many workers they want to hire. Why would that be the case at this wage that they want to hire Q1 workers? So let's think about it this way. What is the benefit to hiring a worker? What's the reason that a company would want to hire a worker? And we're going to say the reason is we're going to define it as the value of the marginal product of labor. That is to say, how much benefits, we can think about this value of the marginal product of labor is how much benefits, it's really just a benefits idea. How much benefits does the worker provide to the firm? What is provided to the firm by hiring the worker? And so here's what we want to think about it. We want to think about the benefits that the worker provides to the firm as being the revenue that they provide to the firm. So the firm is asking themselves, if I hire this worker, what are the benefits I'm going to get? How much revenue is that worker going to create for the company? Okay? And the measurement of that revenue that they create for the company is called the value of the marginal product of labor. That's just kind of the technical term that economists use. So firms are willing to pay labor up to the point where the additional value that they add for the company is equal to something. And so the question is what? Firms are willing to pay labor up to the additional value that they add to the company, and they're going to do that when that additional value is equal to something. Well, what is the something? Well, we've talked about this on a lot of previous videos. People do stuff, companies hire workers up to the point that the benefits of hiring the worker is equal to the cost of hiring the worker. Okay? So the benefits of hiring the worker is the additional revenue stream that is provided by that worker, and the cost of hiring the worker is what we call the wage. That's what the company has to pay the worker. So let's think more about this benefit side. So I said the benefits are called the value of the marginal product of labor, the value of the marginal product of labor. So right here it is. We're actually going to say this. The demand curve for labor, which is downward sloping as all demand curves are, the demand curve for labor really is what we call the value of the marginal product of labor. The demand curve is the value of the marginal product of labor, or said another way, the value of the marginal product of labor is the demand curve for labor. So we could say it this way. This curve right here, this is the demand curve. Okay? This is the demand curve for labor. It's the benefit curve for labor. And it is the value of the marginal product for labor. So let's write a little formula to help us think about this. The value of the marginal product is calculated by taking the output price. Okay, now what do I mean by the output price? That's the price of the good that we are selling in the market. So so this is the output price. So if we sell cars, if this company sells automobiles, then this would be the price of the automobile. If we sell televisions, this would be the price of the television. Whatever it is that the company sells, okay, that's the price of the good that is being produced by the worker. And then we multiply that by what is called the marginal product of labor. And that's why this is called the value of the marginal product. What is the value of the marginal product is like saying, what is the price of the marginal product? Now, what is marginal product? Well, the marginal product of labor, well, I talked about this on a different set of videos when we talked about the cost of production, on that video series. We talked about the marginal product of labor, if you want to go back and watch that. But let's just say very quickly right here what it is. So this is equal, the value of the marginal product is the output price multiplied by the marginal product of labor, which is the change in output from hiring one more worker. So that's an L for labor, change in quantity over the change in labor. So what we do is if I hire one more worker, the question is how much output does that worker add to production? And then you take that additional production and multiply it by the output price, and that tells you the value of hiring that worker. So let's think about it this way. Let's just make some numbers up. So let's say that if I hire one more worker, let's say we're talking about televisions, okay? And let's say that the price of a television is $500 in the market. Okay, that's the price of the TV in this example. That's the output price. So this is the price of the television. And let's say that if I hire one more worker, I didn't mean equals there. That should be multiplied. And so let's say if I hire one more worker, that one more worker will increase TV production by 3 televisions per week. Okay? So what is the value of that worker? What is the value of the marginal product of that worker? Well, the value is the number of televisions that get produced. Because we hire that one more worker, we produce 3 more televisions. And you multiply that by the price that we get for the television, which is $500. So we would say the value of that worker, the value of the marginal product of that worker is $1,500. So that would be the revenue, the additional revenue that comes in from hiring that worker. That's the benefit. Now, the cost is what did I have to pay the worker? Well, if I had to pay the worker, $500 a week, then we would say that the benefits, the value of the marginal product, is greater than the cost, which is the wage, so we would hire the worker. That's how we would think about it. So let's come back over here to our graph. So we would say this. Do I hire worker number 1? Do I hire the first worker? And the answer here would be yes, because the benefits of hiring that worker, which is the value of the marginal product, is greater than the cost of hiring that worker, which is the wage. And that's what's true over here in my example that I did. The value of the marginal product, $1,500, was greater than the wage, which was, say, $500. How about worker number 2? Worker number 2, the benefits of hiring that worker, the value of the marginal product, which is this curve, is greater than the cost of hiring that second worker, and so we hire. And whenever the benefits outweigh the cost, whenever the value of the marginal product is greater than the wage, then we hire the worker. And we would hire worker number 3 for the same reason, worker number 4, worker number 5, all the way out here to Q1 workers. Now, why would I hire Q1 workers? Because at Q1, the benefits of hiring the worker is equal to the cost, which is another way of saying that the value of the marginal product of labor, the revenue stream that worker adds, is exactly equal to the wage that I have to pay him. All right? In fact, let's say this. Let's add something else to this. Over here, wherever the value of the marginal product of labor is greater than the wage, when the value of the marginal product of labor is greater than the wage, that happens over here, then you hire the workers. So you'd hire all those workers. And you would hire up to the point of Q1 where the value of the marginal product equals the wage. If you hired anybody above Q1, then the wage is actually greater than the value of the marginal product of labor, and so you wouldn't hire them, okay? The revenue that they bring in is less than what you have to pay them. So you would hire, if the wage is W1, if the wage is whatever this number is, you would hire Q1 workers, which is where the value of the marginal product is exactly equal to the wage, is exactly equal to the wage. So big idea here is that the demand curve for labor is really just the value of the marginal product of labor. but don't let that all confuse you. The value of the marginal product, it just means it's the benefits, okay? That's the benefits of hiring the worker, is the revenue that comes in compared to the wage. It's just a benefit cost, just like all the other times that we talked about benefits and costs in economics. We're just using this fancier language. All right, so thanks for joining me. This has been another podcast with Mr. Hagan, and we'll see you on the next podcast.